All right, listeners, ready to unlock the secrets of talking about the future in English.
Secrets?
Yeah, like how to tell everyone about your weekend plans or, predict tomorrow's weather without sounding like a robot.
Right, like you actually know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So we're doing a deep dive today all about will and going to.
Tiny words that can cause a lot of confusion.
Oh, yeah, big time. I remember when I was learning English, those two always tripped me up.
Yeah, they seem simple enough, but they're actually pretty tricky.
So where are we starting today?
Well, I think it'd be helpful to first kind of lay out like the foundation. We're going to be working from this English learning podcast, and they highlighted 8 words that are super common when talking about the future.
Ooh, vocabulary alert.
Exactly. And once you get these down pat, it'll be so much easier to actually use will and going to correctly.
All right, so what are the magic words?
We've got plan, prediction, schedule, intend, certain possibility, decide, and expectation.
Wow, that's quite the list. But, they all make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you're talking about the future, you're probably using at least one of these words.
Totally. And here's a fun fact. Most of these words can be both nouns and verbs.
Ooh, I love a good grammar trick.
Yeah, so like take plan. I can plan my day, which is a verb, but I can also have a plan for my day, which is a noun.
Right.
Yeah.
So the word stays the same, but its role in the sentence changes.
Exactly. Gotta love the flexibility of English.
Okay. I feel like we've laid a good foundation with those 8 words.
Yeah, I think we're ready to tackle the main event, will versus going to.
Let the grammar games begin.
All right, so let's start with will. Think of it as the spontaneous one, for those spur-of-the-moment decisions and predictions.
So like when you decide to order pizza at the last minute.
Yeah, or like when you look at the clouds and think, I think it'll rain later.
Right, you're not like 100% sure, but it's your best guess.
Exactly. And will is also used for promises, offers, refusals, that kind of thing.
So like I will help you with the dishes or I will never let you down.
Yep. Anything where you're making a commitment right then and there.
Okay, got it. So will is for spontaneous things, predictions, promises.
Exactly.
Now what about going to? When do we use that one?
Going to is more for like planned actions and predictions based on evidence.
So less about gut feelings, more about like concrete plans.
Exactly. So let's say you booked a flight for next week. You'd say, I'm going to visit my family next week.
Because you've already made the arrangements.
Right. There's not a sudden decision. It's something you've already put in motion.
Okay, I'm starting to see the difference here.
And for predictions based on evidence, think like looking outside and seeing dark clouds. You could say, oh man, it's going to rain.
Because you're basing your prediction on something you can actually see.
Exactly.
Okay. So going to is for planned stuff and predictions based on evidence.
You got it.
This is actually making a lot of sense now. I feel like I'm finally getting a handle on this will and going to thing.
That's great to hear. And trust me, the more you practice, the easier it'll become.
Okay, so we've covered the basics of will and going to.
We have.
But I have a feeling there are some tricky situations where those rules might get a little blurry.
Oh, absolutely. There are always exceptions and special cases in English grammar.
So how do we navigate those tricky situations?
That's what we're going to dive into next.
Perfect, because I'm ready for the next level of Future Talk Mastery.
Let's do it. Okay, so you mentioned those tricky situations.
Yeah, like what are some common mistakes people make with will and going to?
Well, one big one is using going to for like spontaneous decisions.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Yeah, so imagine you see someone drop their groceries. You wouldn't say, I'm going to help you.
That does sound a bit weird.
Right, because it's not a planned action. It's a reaction to something happening in the moment.
So in that case, you'd say, I'll help you.
Exactly. Will is the way to go for those spur-of-the-moment offers and decisions.
Got it. So it's like will is for right now and going to is for later.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so how about we put all this knowledge into practice?
I like where your head's at.
Remember that dialogue we talked about earlier between Sharo and Isabella?
The one about their weekend plans?
Yeah, let's break down how they use will and going to.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so first, Isabella asks Sharo, what are you doing this weekend?
And Sharo replies, I'm going to visit my parents on Saturday.
Perfect example of going to store for a planned action.
Right, she's already decided to visit her parents. It's not a last-minute thing.
And then Isabella says, I'll probably just stay home and relax.
Using will there because she's making a prediction about her weekend.
But she also adds probably, which kind of softens it a bit.
Exactly. It's not a definite plan. She might end up doing something else.
And then Sharo suggests going for a hike.
And Isabella immediately says, that sounds great. I'll call you tomorrow to confirm.
Another perfect use of will.
Yep, she's making a spontaneous decision in response to Sharo's suggestion.
Okay, I'm seeing how this all works together now.
And remember those 8 vocabulary words we talked about earlier?
The plan, prediction, schedule ones.
Right, those can really help clarify whether you should use will or going to.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about it. If you're talking about a plan you've already made, you're more likely to use going to.
Because it implies a higher level of commitment.
Exactly. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're making a prediction, it could go either way depending on how certain you are.
Right, like if you're just guessing, you might use will, but if you have evidence, you might use going to.
You gotta, it all comes down to the nuance of the situation.
Okay, this is all starting to click for me now. I feel like I can actually use will and going to correctly.
That's the goal. And the best way to really solidify this is to just keep practicing.
Right, use it or lose it.
Exactly. So get out there and start talking about your future plans and predictions.
I'm ready to unleash my inner grammar guru.
That's the spirit. And remember, it's all about making your English sound more natural and fluent.
So I can finally stop sounding like a robot.
Exactly. Embrace the spontaneity of will and the planned precision of going to.
Going to.
You're getting it.
All right, so we've covered will, we've covered going to, we even talked about those 8 vocabulary words that help us fine-tune our future talk.
Right, like plan, prediction, all those good ones.
But I feel like there's still more to explore, right? Like, are there other ways to express the future in English that go beyond just will and going to?
Oh, absolutely. English is full of ways to talk about the future. It's like a whole toolkit of expressions just waiting to be used.
Okay, I'm ready to open that toolkit.
Yeah.
What other goodies are in there?
Well, let's think about those times when the future is a little bit uncertain. You know, not a definite plan, but still a possibility.
Like maybe I'll go to the movies tonight, but maybe I'll just stay home and chill.
Exactly. For those situations, we have our modal verbs may, might, and could.
Those are good ones. I use might all the time. Like I might go to the gym later, but I haven't decided for sure.
Perfect example. Those modals introduce that element of doubt or possibility.
And they're also great for talking about hopes and dreams, right? Like I might win the lottery someday.
Exactly. It's not a guarantee, but it's a possibility you're open to.
So it's like saying, hey, universe, I'm putting this out there just in case.
Exactly. And what about those times when you're talking about a future action that's already in motion?
Like I'm studying for a big exam next week.
Perfect. You're not just planning to study, you're already in the process of studying.
So how do we express that in English?
We can use the present continuous tense, but with a future time marker.
So I'm studying for my exam next week.
Exactly. It shows that the action is already happening and will continue into the future.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about those classic phrases like looking forward to or planning on?
Those are great for expressing anticipation and intention.
Like I'm really looking forward to my vacation next month.
Exactly. It conveys that sense of excitement and eagerness for the future.
Okay, this is all making sense now. But what about the not so fun stuff?
What do you mean?
Like what if we're talking about something we're trying to avoid in the future?
You mean like hoping it doesn't rain on your parade?
Exactly how do we express that kind of apprehension about the future?
Well, we can use hope, followed by a negative clause.
Like I hope I don't get stuck in traffic.
Exactly. Or we could use worried or concerned to express those anxieties.
Like I'm worried about that upcoming job interview.
Perfect. You're acknowledging the possibility of something negative happening, but you're not letting it completely take over.
Okay, so we've got a whole arsenal of ways to talk about the future in English, from the spontaneous will to the plan, going to those modal verbs, and even those phrases that express anticipation or worry.
It's like a whole spectrum of future expressions, and the key is to choose the one that best fits the situation.
And just like with any skill, practice makes perfect.
Exactly. The more you use these different expressions, the more natural they'll become.
Well, I have to say, I'm feeling pretty confident about my future talk now.
That's great to hear. And remember, it's all about making your English sound more fluent and expressive.
So I can impress all my friends with my future talking skills.
Exactly. Go out there and embrace the future with confidence.
This has been another incredible deep dive, and I hope you listeners out there feel just as empowered to talk about the future in English as I do.
Keep practicing and exploring, and remember the possibilities are endless.
Until next time, happy learning, everyone.